Geek Therapy Radio.
Welcome to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast. I'm your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger, but you already knew that because you clicked on the podcast. Unless you have podcasts just playing back-to-back automatically, then you may not be aware that the podcast changed, but then again, you heard the bump music, so I'll just stop talking about that now because it makes no sense. So, something I forgot to mention yesterday, and it's just as well that I didn't because it was a very long podcast. It was over an hour long. I don't mind doing longer podcasts if you don't mind listening to longer podcasts, but I pretty much, I've told you I guarantee at least 15 minutes for these daily podcasts if I can do them daily. I think I've settled into this groove of 3 to 5 podcasts per week, and I think that's pretty much where it's going to stay. I have a feeling that when I have my first child here coming up in a few weeks, that I don't think any of you, especially parents listening right now, will blame me if that number goes down a little bit. Probably going to go down to 2 podcasts per week, when it gets... Don't be surprised. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Don't be surprised if it goes down to 2 podcasts per week. I will try to do more when I can do more, but it just don't bite my head off if it goes down to 2 podcasts per week. Having a newborn, I've never been a father before. It's going to be a fascinating challenge, and I will have to get into some sort of groove, and it may very well be, since I'm going to be at work for 8 hours a day on the weekdays. Yes, I'm not going to have my son with me here at work where I usually record these podcasts, but I will probably be exhausted. There's no probably about it. I will be exhausted. I'm going to most likely be moron tired for a good... Man, I hesitate to even throw out a guess. I am going to be moron exhausted, moron tired for quite a while. Not months. Could be years that I'll be moron tired after having my first son, but we'll see. So I have a feeling at least 2 podcasts per week. I still have obligations. I still need to put the radio show on, and I still want to do at least 1 podcast in between each broadcast. So we'll see. But yeah, don't rag me too hard if it goes down to 2 podcasts per week, but I have a feeling that you'll understand. Anyways, for now, 3 to 5 podcasts per week. Anyways, in yesterday's long podcast, I never got to the point or a topic that I wanted to get to, and that is my next choice in vehicle. I told you that I had ripped half the bumper off of Rowdy. Well, I peeled half the bumper away. It didn't rip off completely, but it's broken. Half the bumper is definitely broken. It's it's a weekend project this weekend to get under there with zip ties and things and see if I can at least hold it together to look respectable. But I've been pushing her so far, and it's really kind of the death knell, pulling the bumper off, that I really need to be looking towards another car. And also with the baby on the way, a 2-door coupe isn't the greatest in the world for having a child. Yes, child seats will fit in the back of it, but just a quality of life thing. Do I really want to be leaning in every time I put my child back in the car seat in the 2-seater coupe and then have the passenger seat crammed all the way forward with my wife in it? The trunk is huge in Rowdy, but it's not going to be the most practical car. It doesn't get the greatest gas mileage. I still think it's decent for a powerful V8. It gets, on the highway, I can cruise along at 24 miles to the gallon all day long, which for a big, powerful V8 isn't that bad. But I'm thinking of practicality. Rowdy's long in the tooth, 10 years old. I have told you on Geek Therapy Radio a few times that my goal, and I hope I can do this. My goal is to go EV for my next vehicle. And this is where, if any of you drive EVs or a plug-in hybrid, I don't really care about hybrids like a Toyota Corolla, but plug-in hybrids or EVs. So a plug-in hybrid is something like the Chevy Bolt, which has an electric-only range of about 50 miles before the gasoline engine comes in. So that means on my daily commute, which is a round trip to and from work, 30 miles, and then I plug it back in every day, that means I can go months without using gasoline if I go with a Chevy Volt that gets 50 to 60 miles of range electric only before you ever touch a drop of gasoline. That's what a plug-in hybrid is. I really want to go full EV though. And I want you to weigh in. If you have an EV, if you have a plug-in hybrid or a full electric vehicle, whether it's a Tesla or a Chevy Bolt or a Volkswagen e-Golf or whatever. I don't know why anyone listening would have a Volkswagen e-Golf. Not that I dislike the e-Golf. I think it looks awesome. I think it's great. I just think the range of the e-Golf is pretty bad for how much it costs. And I love VWs, don't get me wrong, but e-Golf, the range is like 110, 120 miles maybe, and I'm sure you can push it a little further than that, maybe maximum 150 miles on a range, on a charge. It's not good enough. It's really not good enough. For an EV to be practical with the range, for me, in my mind, it would have to be over 200 miles. Now, I know that that 100% depends on use case. So, for instance, my friend David Murray, the 8-bit guy, his daughter has, I don't know if she still has it or if she has a Leaf now or whatever, but she used to have a Fiat 500e, which is just an electric version of a Fiat 500. I think the range on that was under 90 miles. Maybe it was around 60 miles. And in that use case scenario, David said she's just driving back and forth to school. She doesn't drive very much. It's just back and forth from school. So really range of 60 miles and you're plugging it in every single day like a cell phone. That limited range for a really cheap EV like that, a Fiat 500e, you can get for well below $10,000. You can get a Fiat 500e for $5,000. And you know, actually, I'm going to look that up real quick. I've got Auto Trader right here, and I'm going to see how much you can get. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a $5,000 maximum price here in Auto Trader and pick full EV. So I'm going to I'll just do 500 miles around Houston. Maximum price. Let's do $5,000 and let's go to fuel type. Fuel type electric, not even plug-in, just electric. And let's see what comes in for 500 miles around Houston, Texas. Really? No results? What's going on here? Stop it. My mouse is going crazy. Okay, so that's interesting. No results. Let's do 10,000. That's a better thing. Let's do 10,000 and then go price lowest to highest and see what comes up around 500 miles. Is there a cheaper EV in the country that's around $5,000? Possibly, but let's just look $500 around Houston and let's sort price lowest to highest. So the cheapest, okay, here we go. The cheapest full EV within 500 miles of where I'm sitting right now is a used 2012 Nissan Leaf for $5,500. Now, I would argue that you could negotiate that down to probably $4,900. $5,000 sounds reasonable to negotiate that down to. But listed $5,500 for a used 2012 Nissan Leaf SL, 51,000 miles. The battery has a 73-mile range. So yes, you can get an EV for around $5,000 here in the United States, and it has a range of less than 100 miles. But depending on your use case, if all you're doing is going back and forth to work every day, back and forth to school every day, 73 miles is perfectly usable. They say that the average American commute is 20 miles. So 10 miles to work and then 10 miles, obviously, back home. Maybe you'll deviate a little bit to go to the grocery store, but the average commute every day is 20 miles. So if your average commute every day is 20 miles, a $5,500 Nissan Leaf that gets 73 miles of range, that's 3 times the range of a normal commute. So it's usable in that scenario. I would also say that that wouldn't be your only vehicle, that your spouse or somebody else in your family would have. I ICE vehicle, to have a gasoline-powered vehicle, or at least an extended range EV to get you on longer trips. You don't want to be stranded completely. So going back to why I would like to, let me rephrase that, why I would like to go full EV for my next vehicle. It's because my wife still has the Jetta. And if she didn't have the Jetta, I would still have the DeLorean. I'm never going to not have a gasoline burning vehicle. I'm going to have that DeLorean forever. So if my wife has an EV and I have an EV, I might only go through a few gallons of fuel every year as I take the DeLorean out and about on joyrides. But if we can just go full EV, if at least I can wean our family into full EV, that is my goal with my next daily driver. It's not now I must say it's not a hard and fast rule for my next car. If it turns out that the most practical, most price appropriate option is to go with, a used station wagon, I would love to have a Golf Sport wagon or a Jetta wagon or a used like Volvo V60 whatever. You can get those for very good prices. I've always preferred the idea of a station wagon to an SUV or a minivan. If I need to go station wagon because it's just that much cheaper, then I might have to do one more internal combustion engine thing until I wait for the simple matter of EVs becoming more widely available. So, but I'll tell you where I'm leaning right now. The two cars that are at the top of my list, I would say for now, given my the value of Rowdy, financial situation, whatever, because I hate having car payments. I hate having car payments. So if we do have another car payment, I want it to be less than what my wife just finished paying on her Jetta. So if we can keep the car payment, if we have to have a car payment less than that, I think we're good. And especially if we're going EV, we're saving all that much more cost of fuel every month. So that's how I'm justifying all of this. My top two choices right now as of recording, I need to go test drive. We need to go put the child seats in and see what it's like in the real world. But I think my top choice right now is a 2017 or 18 Chevy Bolt with a B. That is their full EV subcompact hatchback. It gets 238 miles of range, although users say that they are getting well over 250 regularly in the Bolt EV, but it's full electric, no gasoline whatsoever, and the range is Tesla-esque range. It's even more range than some older Teslas even. They're older Teslas, Model S's and whatnot. 200 miles of range, 205 miles of range. So the Bolt gets 238 advertised conservative miles of range, full EV, and you can get them for you can get them for absolutely under $20,000. You can actually get them even cheaper than that. But if I'm going to have a car payment, I might as well get a newer car. I just want to avoid as much maintenance as possible. I love working on cars. Like, I love working on the DeLorean. But, I'm done for now working on Rowdy. As much as I love her, the past several months, getting her new computer and diagnosing it and trying to be as cost-effective as I can possibly be before I, came to the conclusion that it was the expensive computer. I'm tired of dealing with maintenance on daily drivers right now. I'm tired of it. If I didn't have to change oil again, if I didn't have to change spark plugs, if I didn't have to just basically worry that things are wearing out, and if all I had to worry about mostly is just brake pads every 30,000, 50,000 miles and changing tires and not having to worry about oil changes or the engine wearing out or things of that nature, by going EV, I'm all for it. I'm done now with maintenance on daily drivers. Like I said, I will spend 5 hours at a clip underneath Lauren the DeLorean, but I done under the hood of Rowdy. I don't want to open that hood for a long time. For a daily driver, I just want something that is efficient and safe and peppy enough. I do like to drive, so I like it to be a little exciting. The Bolt EV goes 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds. Even lower than that, some people are reporting, even with those economy low rolling resistance, very slippery tires. It goes 0 to 66.5 seconds. That's Volkswagen GTI territory. You have 200 horsepower and 266 foot-pounds of torque. That's hot hatchback territory. Those are hot hatchback numbers. So it's got the zip down. It even has so much torque, it has torque steer. So apparently it's fun to drive, got good pep, a lot of good features, and buying it used, you're saving $20,000 easy over brand new. I still think $40,000 before any incentives for a brand new Bolt is silly. It's one of those things, it's kind of like tablets. It's like, would I recommend a new electric car? No, not really. Where you can get a used one that's a year or two old, and it's the same can be said for any car, really. Why spend the $20,000, $30,000 premium, depending on what kind of car you're getting, by getting the brand new car? Just get a model that's a year or two older. And I understand people want the newest, latest, and greatest, and they want all the warranty and all that kind of stuff, but I don't know. It's always seemed silly to me to go brand new with my own money. I'm not anti doing it. I'm not saying that I might never do it in my life, but it seems strange to me. So let's talk about a Tesla. Let's say you want, a brand new Model 3, which is pretty much all you're going to get right now. It is almost impossible to find a used Model 3. But let's say new Model 3, starting price $45,000, $40,000, and you're just going to be saving all this money on fuel and everything. That doesn't really pan out. If the idea is to save money, you're not going to save any money buying new anything. If the idea is saving money, you'd buy an old Toyota Corolla, a nice, reliable little car that gets good gas mileage for $3,000 to $5,000 instead of a $40,000 car. Do you know how much fuel that price difference is? $35,000 a price difference for fuel. That's years and years and years and years and years and years to make up that price difference, going for a $35,000 EV versus a $3,000 Toyota Corolla at $2 a gallon to even $2.50 a gallon for gas here in the United States. I don't know, in Europe it's way more expensive. You're talking, a few euros per liter. I don't know. Actually, I don't know off the top of my head what the gas price in Europe is right now because I'm not in Europe. I haven't been to Europe in quite a while, but I do know that gasoline is very expensive, and they sell it per liter. So you're looking at that price. Oh, that's not too bad. Then you figure it's per liter, and however many liters go into a gallon, it's very expensive. Anyways, back to our situation. So yeah, my top choice right now is I would say 2016 to 2019-ish, whenever the price is right. Chevy Bolt, which is still going to be under warranty, by the way, very low mileage. We're going to have to go test it out and see it and put the car seat in and see how it works. But I've been reading and watching a lot of reviews, as anybody does before they make a big financial purchase like a car. You do a lot of reviews. Some of the biggest YouTube channels that exist are car channels that review cars. It's a huge segment of YouTube, huge segment of the internet period is car reviews. The Bolt actually I was worried about child seats and car seats and children, but it gets very high marks. Yeah, you can fit car seats rearward facing, front facing. You can fit one or two in there depending how tall you are. You can put a 6-foot passenger in the front seat and then put the rear-facing child seat, infant seat in the back seat and still have an inch to spare. So it's a small car, but apparently they maximized the interior volume, and lots of little families love the Bolt. And it's EV. You don't got to spend money on gas and just drive it to work every day and come home, plug it in during the night. It's all charged up overnight. Come back, full tank of electrons, and passengers over 6 feet tall fit well in the back. And it's just been getting lots of good praise in all the areas that I'm interested in as a father to be here very shortly. And the price is right, and it would fulfill my goal of going pure EV for my personal daily driver as my next car. So there's that, and I want your opinion, especially if by some chance you're listening and you do have a Chevy Bolt. Let me know how it's been for you. You know how to contact me. Easiest way, by far, is just the website. Anybody who sent me a message recently knows that that's the easiest way to get in touch with me. GeekTherapyRadio.com. You see the form right there. Easiest way. I get the notification in my email. Hey, so-and-so's contacted you through the website. And okay, I'll go there, I'll reply, and everything's great. You can also email me directly if you want to. GeekTherapy@iHeartMedia.com. GeekTherapy@iHeartMedia.com. Or what you can do is tweet at me. Just Geek Therapy Radio on Twitter. I think technically the handle is @GeekTherapyKPRC. But if you just do the Twitter search for Geek Therapy Radio, there I am. Hopefully I'd be the first thing that comes up. But anyways, there's multiple ways to contact me. Facebook too. Go subscribe to all that stuff while you're at it. There's the plug. But yeah, if you have a Bolt, let me know through one of those avenues. GeekTherapyRadio.com is the easiest. So number 2 on the list, and I keep coming back to this, is the Chevy Volt. It's cheaper than the Chevy Bolt. It is a plug-in hybrid. It has about 60 miles or so of pure EV range before the 4-cylinder gasoline engine kicks on, which means that you can go months and months without ever having to go to a gas station, without ever turning on the gasoline engine. Apparently the gas engine will turn on here and there, like every 1,000 miles or so, it'll run itself for a moment just to keep fluids going and keep the engine from seizing. You know, part of maintenance on a gasoline engine is to run the thing. So you still, even if it runs every once in a while to maintain itself, that still means you can go months and months and months, if not a year, maybe possibly, without ever running the engine. You don't want to keep old gas in the tank for that long going stale, but you can go thousands of miles between fill-ups in a Chevy Volt easily. And I know that day in, day out on my 30-mile round-trip commute to work, that means I would never use a drip of gasoline for at least 90% of my driving. And then if we wanted to go to Austin or something like that, even though the Bolt could go to Austin too, but let's say we want to go further. Let's say I need to drive to Amarillo for some reason, which is, I don't know, 500, 600, 700 miles away from Houston. Same state. It's in Texas. It's in the panhandle of Texas. Let's say I wanted to take the Volt up there. That means the first 60 miles or so would be on battery only, and then the gasoline engine would seamlessly kick in and take us the rest of the way. I think it's a 400-mile total range per tank of gas in the Volt. So it could do road trips easily with no range anxiety, but it can also, for 90% of commuting, never touch a drop of gasoline. I don't think Chevy did a great job of adequately describing and marketing what the Volt was and what it could do. For me, it seemed like the absolutely perfect transition vehicle. But the dealers had to explain it to people. No, it's not a hybrid. It can work as a hybrid, but it's not really a hybrid. It's a plug-in hybrid. You have to plug it in every day. Well, I thought the battery just charged off the engine. Yes, it does, but there's a lot of explaining, and I just think a lot of people didn't really get it. And also, Chevy never really advertised it very much. I barely saw any ads for it here in the United States. Barely any at all, if any at all. It's like Chevy was almost embarrassed of it. It was part of the bailout. It was part of General Motors being bailed out that they had to make this hybrid vehicle, this plug-in hybrid, and it's like Chevy was embarrassed of it. So, but the Bolt still is high on my list. It's number 2 behind the Bolt. The Volt is behind the Bolt. They should have also named them differently. Although the Chevy Bolt is known as the Opel, what is it? It's an Opel something in Europe. Same car. So the Chevy Volt is number 2 on the list. Apparently it's not as much back seat space. It's a little bigger car, I believe, than the Chevy Bolt overall, but the actual interior volume is less than the Chevy Bolt, if that makes any sense at all. It's kind of a smaller car, but the Bolt is a smaller car, but it has more room for rear passengers than the Chevy Volt. I think at the end of the day, I would still, given the choice between the two as it stands right now as a recording, I would probably still go Bolt. It would fulfill the checklist. It's just a goal. Full EV for the next car. If possible, full EV. Can't get a Tesla. And I honestly probably wouldn't really want to look at first generation Model S's. So like 2012 Model S's. You can get those under 30 grand here in the United States, and I'm sure they're fine cars. They're getting up there in the miles and the wear and they look good. The ones I've looked at look good, but they're still expensive. Even the cheapest used Teslas are still quite expensive. So it looks like Bolt. It looks like Bolt. What I would like to do, and this is just some nuts and bolts of business right now. I love letting you guys and gals behind the curtain here. I always try to keep as honest a storefront at Geek Therapy Radio as possible. You can see right through the glass. I like bringing you on the other side, letting you know what's going on behind the scenes. Ideally, I would like to, and I've told you everyone this before, as far as getting sponsors for Geek Therapy Radio, the radio show and the podcast, I would love to work with auto manufacturers that are about to make a huge EV push. I think this is the perfect platform for saturating the minds of listeners, broadcast and podcast. Podcast listeners, I know you guys don't really need your mind saturated with more EV talk. You already know, but the broadcast listeners especially. And I would say podcast listeners too. Part of advertising is just reminding, hey, this product is this. Hey, this product is this. Hey, I know you know about EVs, but hey, this product exists. I would love to have an auto manufacturer on board to help them promote EVs. So if my interest is getting a Bolt, and this is here behind the scenes here, I'm just letting you know, I would love to talk to a Chevy dealership or talk to General Motors somehow and work out some sort of deal where they just pay the car note. Let's work out this financing deal. We'll trade in Rowdy, but I want, as part of a bigger kind of scope of things, I would want you to take care of that car note every month. A couple $100, take care of that, plus a little something else. Well, we can negotiate all this stuff, but if I didn't have to pay a car note, that would be wonderful. If all I had to do was plug it in, and I've already tweaked my electricity plan in anticipation that two things. I've tweaked our electricity plan anticipating that we are going to use more electricity either way. That even if I don't get an EV, which isn't really going to use that much electricity, with a baby on the way, I fully 100% anticipate that washer and dryer running all the time, of possibly doing daily loads of poopy and pissy laundry. To be quite frank, I anticipate the electricity bill going up. Also, our nursery upstairs it's upstairs, so it's not the most well insulated. I think the room, it's pretty good, but it stays warmer than the rest of the house. So all I'm getting at is, if that's the case, then we are going to be running the AC more often to keep the nursery at the correct temperature, especially over the summer, for our little baby. And I almost slipped the name out right there. The name is still a mystery. You'll know the name of my child, and it will make complete sense when he is born. I can tell you that his last name is Hamburger, so you do know that. But yeah, I'm going to run the electricity more because I'm going to be running the air conditioning more to keep that room at the correct temperature for our child, especially over the summer. And we're going to be running the washer and dryer more often. And there's a possibility I might be plugging an EV in every day, electric vehicle. So I've tweaked the electricity plan in anticipation of all that. But I would like to, like I said, when I get the vehicle, negotiate some deal with General Motors or Chevy, because I'll tell you this, and it's not advertising for them. I have no particular penchant or favoritism towards Chevy. It's just I have favoritism towards any auto manufacturer right now that is going to bring more EVs to the market, and most of them are. I would love to work with Volkswagen. I would love to get an ID3 or an ID4 when that comes out. Over the next few years, that's all I'm getting at here, is over the next few years, I think Chevy says that by 2023, it's something like 30 models. Like they'll have 30 options across the line for EV. They're bringing out a fully EV Hummer. That's probably going to be one of their flagship vehicles. I think there's rumors of the 2021 Corvette, if not the 2022 Corvette, being a 900 horsepower monster hybrid, having that same pushrod V8 in there, but supplemented with EV technology going to all four wheels, which would also make it the first all-wheel drive Corvette ever. 900 horsepower. Man, electricity is awesome. I am just on board with all of that, and I would love to help and use whatever power I have in my voice is with the broadcast and the podcast to start getting people psyched up and okay with and comfortable with the idea of the EV. That's the other thing. That's the other thing with all of this. There needs to be education with getting people up to speed, get it, with the electric vehicle future. There's still so much confusion about electric vehicles and range anxiety and everything. The infrastructure is getting so much better. Electrify America means you can drive your EV from Los Angeles to New York City and from Chicago to Houston. All just eliminate that anxiety with fast charging. The charging's getting faster and faster. The battery technology is getting better and better. The charging infrastructure is getting better and better and wider. And the grid, the electrical grid, is being beefed up along the way to handle it. There needs to be more education that EVs aren't this pariah of the automotive spectrum. What am I going to do with a battery-powered vehicle? It's electric like my toothbrush. How's that going to work? Where am I going to charge? How am I going to charge it up at work? And you can't really go as far, and it's not as fast. And it's just, I don't want to come off as one of these Greenpeace people and da-da-da-da. I'm not trying to make a statement with my car. You don't have to be making a statement. It's just a car that gets you to work, and you plug it in like your phone. That's all it is. You just plug it in like a tablet or your laptop. But there needs to be education about this, and that's what I would love to grow a sponsorship, to nurture a sponsorship that helps me in my family, that is passionate about a technology that I'm passionate about, and just so happens to be a little bit better for the environment if done right. That's a huge asterisk right there. If you're rolling around in a high performance Tesla or an electric car and you're charging it off of a coal power generation facility, you're in a state that burns coal for electricity, you're really not offsetting the carbon footprint. You have a cool car that's EV, but you're really not in a coal burning state having much of an impact. You're burning that coal to charge your car. Texas, for those who don't know, is and it sounds counterintuitive, Texas is one of the largest renewable energy generating states in the country. For land and just for capita, it's one of the most renewable energy friendly parts of the world. We have so much wind generation here, wind electricity, windmills. Anybody from Houston knows this is true, and anybody from Texas actually knows this is true. I defy you to think of a time in the last month when you were driving around that you didn't see a gigantic windmill blade driving down the freeway. They are transporting those all over the place. We have massive wind farms in Texas. My electricity provider is called Jexa Energy, and I'm on a plan. I don't even sure I can choose a plan that isn't this way. But they promise that all of the electricity coming to my house is from renewable energy sources, so from wind and solar. Texas is a huge state for that. Texas is an energy state. I think that's what people get so confused with about Texas and energy companies, that it's synonymous with oil, or that Texas is synonymous with oil, which the oil is a huge part of Texas. Do not get me wrong. We are famous for striking oil, and that's partly the reason why Houston exists, and Beaumont, and there's many famous stories of striking oil in Texas, and oil derricks and oil rigs in Texas and out in the Gulf of Mexico and everything. But Texas is an energy state. And these are energy companies that reside here in the state. And they don't care that it comes from oil or if it comes from the wind or from solar. As long as they can make $1 off of it, as long as they can profit off it and sell that energy, it doesn't matter if it's an old dinosaur that died 50 million, 100 million years ago, or if it came from the sun's rays. Sell the electricity. It's an energy state. So we have lots of renewable energy here in Texas. It's all part of this education towards getting the general public more comfortable with EV. And I would like to be a part of it that benefits the public and benefits the manufacturer, the company, and benefits me and my family. There's a reason why I say I would never take a vaping shop as a sponsor, because to me, that's really unethical. I cannot sit here and promote somebody smoking a vape. I won't judge anybody for smoking a vape, but I'm not going to be selling it. So if I can team up with businesses that are meaningful to me, or are doing a meaningful thing in society and on the world stage, and I'm all for it. So helping promote EVs and promote education of EVs, and maybe get a couple people out there listening to buy an EV, I'm all for it. Part of the stigma, and I think I'll start kind of wrapping up with this. I think part of the stigma with EVs is cultural. If I can say that, there's this idea that it's not so among car people, I guess, people who love, V8 engines and V12s and V10s and drag racing and da-da-da and rolling coal and all that EVs are pansy cars. They're for weaklings and dorks. And that's just simply not the case. That's part of the education. That stigma needs to it's a ridiculous stigma. Like so many stigmas, it's just ridiculous. And that education, that EVs aren't this stupid thing. And I don't think that a lot of early EVs did that stigma any favors. In hybrids too, I've talked about this. They made them look different, and they made them look cheap, and they made them look wild and crazy and make a statement. And that was part of the problem. They're just cars, and they can be super sexy performance cars like a Tesla, like a Roadster, or they can just be commuters like a Bolt. A Bolt still has some little flashy elements to it to make it, EV, but it's pretty understated, which is great. But the fact is that you can like both things. Both things can be good. A gasoline engine like that Corvette yesterday, that's really cool. But do you know what else is really cool? A Tesla Model S that does 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds off of pure electricity. You can make cool electric cars, really fast, cool, high-performance electric cars. So many hypercars on the world stage today are hybrid electric cars. The Porsche 918 is the first thing that comes to my mind. What's the Ferrari? I think it's the F12. Is it hybrid? Nuts. These things are getting close to 1,000 horsepower. And they're hybrids. They're virtually the same technology as a Prius. It's all about perception and education. So if General Motors or Volkswagen or whoever really wants to ramp up the sale of EVs going into the early 2020s here, they need to ramp up the perception and education. They really need to ramp that up. That's the only thing that I see kind of missing from the equation right now is there aren't more radio hosts, there aren't more TV personalities, there aren't enough commercials on TV. There's not enough marketing and advertising right now. There is some. Do not get me freaking wrong on here. There is marketing for EV. I don't think there's enough though, given how close around the corner all the manufacturers are trying to push EV. In the war to occupy people's minds needs to start years before you bring these products to their attention. You can't just have your showroom floor flooded. Here's 30 models of EV. No one's really heard of it before then. You got to get people ramped up and excited and hyped and educated for a couple years out before you start offering them for sale. You got to get them hungry for it and educated about it. And yes, there is marketing right now that is doing that, but I still think there's just not enough for as close around the corner as they say this is. 2 to 4 years here for most of the major manufacturers. They got to start ramping it up, and I would love to help do that and feed my family. I don't think there's any shame in that. I do not want to feed my family by telling you to go to a vape shop or to buy cigarettes or something. I'm not about that. But feed my family, feed myself, fix things around the house, that's paid for by advertising for electric vehicles. Sure. I'm all about it. I am all about it. So, anyways, I think that's going to do it for the podcast tonight. Actually, I'll do one more thing. One little tech bit to hit on before we end this podcast here. 2 things, actually. Windows 10 machines are about to get Windows 10 machines running on ARM will be able to emulate x64 applications soon. So that's cool. That means you can run 64-bit native Windows applications on an ARM chip. And that's about to happen soon. That's a big deal for Windows on ARM. In the Surface Pro X, we'll be doing that. So that's one thing. But the real thing I want to hit on here on the way out is the new Microsoft Surface Laptop Go. So we had the Surface Go, which is a 2-in-1 tablet. But now Microsoft has just introduced the Surface Laptop Go. So they have the Surface Laptop. Now they have a budget model called the Surface Laptop Go, and it starts at $550, technically $549. My only little thought on that is there's a lot of things going on here in my mind. $549, the specs that gives you is 4 gigabytes of RAM and 64 gigabytes of eMMC storage. $550. That is such, to me, low value for money. You can get much better machines, much better laptops with much better specs for $550. Microsoft has a tax just like Apple has a tax. The Apple tax and the Microsoft tax definitely exist for their hardware. In the Surface Go, base model Surface Laptop Go for $550 with 4 gigabytes of RAM and 64 gigs of slow-ish eMMC storage is not worth it. The first model of Surface Laptop Go that gets you in the door with decent specs. So they all have the base model I just mentioned, $549. The processor is an i5-1035 G1. It's a 10th generation Intel processor, 4 gigabytes of RAM, and the 64 gigabytes eMMC storage that I'm talking about. So the processor is good, the RAM is not enough, and the storage is definitely going to be the bottleneck of that system. For $550, you can get better laptops for $550 with more storage. The first Surface Laptop Go that makes sense costs $700. i5, 8 gigabytes of RAM, and 128 gigabytes of actual NVMe solid-state storage. 128 is still kind of low, especially for $700, and that's kind of my point. You start speccing this thing up, you start getting closer to $1,000, and it's not good value for money. Brand new. I have always maintained that Surface products, Microsoft Surface products, so the tablets and the Go's and all that stuff, are way better value used, getting the last generation of it after the prices depreciated so much. I still have a Surface Pro 3 or 3 Pro, whatever, from, when was that, 2015 something? It is still an amazing device. It was awesome. I got that thing for dirt cheap. It is spectacular. I would never pay full price for it new. It is not good value for money. If you're looking at a $700 Surface Laptop Go with only 8 gigabytes of RAM and only 120 gigabytes of solid state storage, NVMe solid state storage, skip it. You can spend $550 up to $700 for these examples. Much better. Much better. Way more bang for your buck doing a little bit more research on it. The Surface pricing, brand new, it never makes sense to me. It's the Microsoft tax. And that's all I really had to say about that. Do you have a differing opinion on it? I'm not doubting that they aren't exquisite devices. The fit and finish, and they are premium, definitely premium. But you've got to start spending a lot of money for decent specs that you can get for half as much in a device that you're willing to have a little bit more plastic on. So it's all about what you want. So anyways, thank you so much for listening to Geek Therapy Radio. I'll remind you one more time, if you drive a Chevy Bolt or a Chevy Volt, please message me. I would love to hear your thoughts on it after ownership, because I might be getting one or the other here soon. So I would love to hear about that. Or if there's another EV that you think I should be paying attention to. Which reminds me, the other day I was talking about I might be getting an Android tablet here soon. Like a Galaxy Tab S4 or probably a Galaxy Tab S6, now that the new S7s have come out and the prices for the S6, which is the last generation models, are going to go down and have started to go down. One of you mentioned to me that I should seriously look at the Amazon Fire 10 HD, right? Is it Amazon HD Fire 10? It's the 10-inch Amazon tablet. And at first I was thinking, nah, it's budget. You know, you can get them. Sometimes they go on sale for $120 or so. And I was just thinking, I don't know. I don't want to go really budget. This is something that I would like to last a long time. And I'm willing to spend a little bit more for something a little more premium that's going to last a lot longer. Or just last longer. It's more beefy. And I'm going to do a lot of emulation with this. I want to be playing PSP games and all that good stuff. So, but he said, hey, check out the Amazon Fire HD 10 or 10 HD. So I started looking around reviews. That's a good tablet right there. No, it's not going to be just as powerful as a Samsung Galaxy Tab S6 with a Snapdragon 855 in it. But it's a good tablet. ETA Prime is one of my favorite YouTubers, and he tests tablets all the time, especially emulation, and runs emulators on the tablet. And no, the HD10 isn't going to run God of War or Chains of Olympus without frame skipping enabled, but it runs a ton of emulators smoothly. So I'm not sure if I'm going to get the HD10 at the end of the day. My heart is still leaning towards the Samsung Galaxy Tab S6, but y'all reaching out to me with these suggestions is great. I almost dismissed the HD10 until one of you reached out to me, say, check out Amazon's tablet. It's actually surprisingly good. You got to do some rigmarole and sideload the Google Play Store and Google Play services, but because it's locked into Amazon's operating system, which is based on Android, I think it's 9. So you got to sideload Google. But thank you for pointing that out. So if you drive a Bolt or a Volt, please reach out and let me know. Or if you know of another, if the Hyundai Ioniq is really good, worth considering, let me know. Other EVs good, worth considering, things to consider, reach out, let me know. Doesn't have to just be Bolt or Volt, but I prefer hearing from actual owners. Anyways, please know that you are worthy of love. You are worthy of giving and receiving love. We're all geeks about something. Embrace your inner geek. Share your inner geek with others. Thank you again so much from the bottom of my heart for listening day in, day out. Every time I upload a podcast, you guys and gals listen, and it warms my heart to the core. And I love talking to you. Reach out to me if you want. geektherapyradio.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you very soon.